Call this meeting to order, October 11th, 2022, Board of Finance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Is there any public input? Is there anyone on the Zoom room? Okay.
Turning off my phone.
Correspondence. Okay. Let us consider. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting of September 13th?
I would make a motion to accept the September 13th minutes as Mary presented them.
13th, right?
13th. Did I say
Second, is someone seconding it?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, did that. Now we're going right to the headliner.
Big speaking project.
Why don't you make a motion so that you'll just read those words? I don't have to say them twice.
I'd make a motion that we consider having the Board of Education apply for the HVAC grant with the presentation tonight.
Okay, that's not. Mary will figure it out. You made a motion to consider options for the Board of Education in applying for an HVAC grant for Bethel High School.
I would second it.
Thank you. Please.
All right, thank you for having us. I think we have Jen Berriali, I keep referring to you as the new Berriali, the Director of Business and Finance, and Crystal Ray, our high school principal, and Melanie O'Brien, our Board of Ed Chair. We had invited, and I know Cynthia and Nick attended last June session. We did a feasibility study at the high school because we, for the past, I would say at least the 9 years that I've been superintendent at Bethel, have had ongoing HVAC issues at the high school. And we thought it was time to conduct a thorough feasibility study to really look at what the nature of the issues are, what was a plan to address not only the HVAC issues, but air conditioning in the high school for a long-term look. In the meantime, we had a discussion that, and we knew, and I know Cynthia certainly knew, that the state was about, and the governor had announced, I think it was last spring, that the state was going to be allocating $90 million of their federal funding to fund HVAC projects for school as part of their COVID, I think it's the ARP, right? ARPA money. I was pleasantly surprised that that 90 million, when the governor actually announced it, turned to 150 million. And I think that puts us in a much better place to actually apply for this grant. Just given the nature of what we know HVAC costs and how many schools across the state and how many don't have even any type of HVAC systems or ventilations, I thought we'd be pretty low on the priority list. Bethel would be pretty low, but it turns out that I think we have a much better shot at securing some of this funding to address those issues. So we sent you 3 different documents. We sent you the actual feasibility study that was conducted by Fuller Ronan. We sent you the presentation that they provided the Board of Ed in June of 2022. And lastly, we provided you this quick PowerPoint update to just kind of go through. And Jen and I are going to do this together. But what we hope to cover is kind of what Fuller Ronan, in a broad sense, found as what the needs were, the HVAC needs are at the whole high school. How that played into what we submitted to Brad in terms of the capital plan and how we thought that would fit, given what Fuller Ronan's recommendations are. What this grant opportunity involves and what the pieces of that are. And then lastly, some options to consider from the Board of Finance in terms of where you want us to go in terms of funding, applying for the grants and funding for it. So we want to walk you through those phases of what's involved. We do not, and I want to be crystal clear, you do not need to make a decision tonight. You have some time. You don't have to apply for the grant until December 1st. That is the grant application date. But we do need to get a sense about what you're thinking, because it is going to affect the work that we're going to have to do in preparation for the grant. Because if you said to me, no, we're not interested, which I hope it's not the answer, but we're not interested in all in applying for this grant, well, that would save a lot of time and effort in terms of like the application process and what we need to do at the district level. But we want to walk you through some kind of funding options or options to consider, but we would need to know in November, because in November, we would have to meet the December 1st deadline. So we would have to have a sense from you, and I'll walk you through why that is based on the grant applications. Does that seem fair? Okay. Questions so far?
I do have one question.
Yes.
So in our November meeting, you would need us to allocate monies to this project, right?
I'm gonna get there.
Oh,
I'm gonna get there.
absolutely.
Because there is a commitment in terms of what the municipality has to give in order for us to apply for the grant.
Sort of like the school renovations.
100%. And just so you all know, this is run out of the Office of School Construction. So all these grant applications is going through that. And the good news is we have a couple of really good things going for us. One is we had already started the feasibility study, and we had already done a lot of the legwork that we just happened to need for application for this grant. And then secondly, just because we've just gone through a project, I am very familiar with all of the different pieces of paperwork that has to go through to actually do the application for the grant. So this is just a very like broad 30,000 foot overview of some of the issues going on at the high school. Right now, much of the equipment I would characterize as being very old. When you look at the actual presentation that they had at the Board of Ed presentation, it actually lists by each individual unit how old it is and what their recommendation is for replacement. And they even categorized it from good to low to poor priorities. So if you look, our biggest issue right now is ERU 2, and that is an air handler unit that covers our science classrooms. And the reason that this is a big deal is we can't run any labs that involve any type of chemicals, because we don't have the proper ventilation out. So it is affecting, so it has to be fixed anyways, because the ventilation needs to be fixed in that particular room. But because it's a science lab, labs.
Correct, they're biology classrooms. So this is the first floor, there's 2 units, ERU 1 and ERU 2. The upper floor has all the chemistry classrooms, which fortunately have 2 hoods. The lower floor right now, we can't do anything with chemicals, so those classes have to flip-flop if they're going to do any kind of science labs that involve chemicals. It's just recirculating.
Right. And I just want to remind, I know we've talked about this before, but none of these units were replaced as part of the renovation project. So when Bethel High School done the mechanical system somewhere, and then
These 2 units were new.
Yeah.
They came into that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Those were 2 spaces that were basically brand new.
But most of the mechanical systems were not replaced during the renovations. And then many of the units are 15 to 16 years old, are 16 to 17 or over 15 years old, and are just naturally approaching their end of their lifespan. Again, if you go to the last page or the second to last page of the Colaroni presentation, you'll see a really detailed analysis of what's happening. In addition to that, we also have a number of classrooms. Now all of our schools except Bethel High School are fully air conditioned. Right now we have 36 classrooms that are not air conditioned. Our gym's not air conditioned, the weight room and the wrestling room. And I don't know if you've been in a weight room, but it's got pretty poor ventilation also in terms of the airflow kind of going through. And even as the report indicates, the bathrooms lack proper ventilation. And so there's kind of a myriad of issues that are going on in the high school with each of the systems. And I'm not going to go through every unit, but you have the detail of what that is. So we asked for Kohler Ronan to provide some cost estimates of what it would take and to prioritize for us. This is before we even knew about the grants, okay? What is it going to cost us? Because I think I've shared with you before that we had, the Bethel Public Schools had put as part of their our ESSER money, we call it ESSER, which is the our ARP money or COVID money. We had originally put $100,000, $1 million towards it. And I think I explained to you that we had some special ed issues. So we had to drop that down to 700,000 because we needed part of the funds to pay for some ongoing issues with students with disabilities. So we had dedicated $700,000 out of that budget to make sure that we could address some of the HVAC issues at the high school. In addition, the town of Bethel, Brad, I don't know if it was formally voted on.
It is not. It's been earmarked by the ARPA committee, and that's been presented to the Board of Selectmen. But only the Board of Selectmen can allocate ARPA money, and they have not officially allocated ARPA money for this project.
How much was
But
it?
it was
400,
it's been on the plan for 400,000.
right?
That's
So
something.
So the combination of the money that we have in the district and what the town had originally said with the ARPA money, it would provide $1.1 million in total cost. When they gave us the first fly through and really said, these are the things that we really need to fix now, and this is why it was structured this way on the capital plan. The total cost to do some of the primary air conditioning, and just to give you a sense of what these classrooms are like, and I think we are all aware, it's just warmer now, right? And so when you get the 90-degree heat days, the third floor English wing, the math classrooms, they stay steadily between 85 and 90 degrees. And during COVID, we couldn't even use fans, so we couldn't even run fans through those classrooms. So I ended up having to cancel school early just for the high school as a result of that. And it's the humidity too, right, Chris?
Correct, yeah, and it's a concrete building, so.
And the sun comes up that way.
And then the track and field training center is a blessing, but the sun gets off the track and field training center and then projects back to the building.
So if you look, based on the air conditioning of those key areas, so it's the first section between 22 and 23, the Kohler Ronan was estimating at the time that it was about $2.3 million to deal with the biggest priorities. They said, if you are going to do anything right now, these are the things that you absolutely should take care of. And then what they did was they prioritized, and Jen actually did this, they prioritized the rest of the units and said, this is the way, based on the age and the lifespan of those units, that they recommended that we replace them. You'll see that if we did everything that Kohler Ronan was projecting, that their estimate was close to 7 million to fix all of these different pieces. Do you want to add anything, Jeff?
No.
Okay.
7 million over 3 years.
Yes, that is an option. And so then this grant opportunity came up, right? And just like I think I indicated in an email to you, right now it's managed by the Office of School Construction. It is a matching grant, just like our security grant, just like our school construction grant for Rockwell and Johnson. And Bethel's reimbursement match is 46.43%. So it's close to 50 cents on a dollar that they would match for eligible costs for doing HVAC work to the extent of which they approve that grant. The application is due on December 1st. So this is what we have to do to even apply for the grant. And I want to talk you through, and I think Dee is going to answer one of your questions, okay? And I took this directly from the state website. And so the first is that we would have to secure local funding for the balance or the match of the grant that we are applying for. And then we would have to apply for the grant. We would have to establish a building committee. We already have a building committee in Bethel, so that's not a big deal. And then we would also have to authorize the preparation of at least a schematic drawings. We have already started that process because we were going to use the ESSER money for, you know, at least part of the grant. So that process has already started. And then what it breaks it down that we would have to do is we have to prioritize school building. We're really only talking about the high school because all the other schools have either had their systems updated or they're brand new, right? We have another requirement is that we would have to do a facility study and assessment of the building conditions. Well, we already did it last spring. Really, like I said, it wasn't done knowing that this grant money was going to be available. We were just doing it to just try to get a handle on what was going on with the HVAC systems at the high school. You have to demonstrate a long-term facility capital plan. We already have that. Bethel's already had that for years, so that's not a big deal. But what we would have to do is establish local funding. And today is October 11th. But what we would need to tell them is depending upon what option we want to take. I mean, obviously by town charter, if the match is over $1 million, that would actually require us to go to a referendum. So just like the school projects, they would allow us to apply for the grant. If the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance approved it, and we would have to set a referendum date for the taxpayers to determine whether or not they were going to support this project. Does that make sense?
Are you just saying that the referendum has to happen?
No,
No,
not before
it-
December
it-
1st.
right, exactly,
That actually scared me because I was like, how is that actually, how in heck would that happen?
Yeah, in any town.
There's a lot of
In any
voting going
town,
on.
not just Bethel. No, we would just have to say, I think you would.
Got their
Board of
blessing and
Selectmen
we're gonna
Board
move
of, I think you'd probably actually have to make a motion that you were gonna send it to referendum on such and such a date. No, that does not mean that that date couldn't correspond, I don't think, with our budget process. I don't know if they would require that it gets done a little bit early, but our budget process in Bethel compared to other communities is pretty early. So we may be able to do it during the normal budget process, but you would have to agree that you were going to put it out to the taxpayers.
So that would be like the question, the advisory question or the,
Right, isn't it? You normally
is it
have
called?
capital.
yeah, that
question?
usually
it
has
could be a fire
capital
truck, could
projects
be-
on
right,
it,
could be
so
HVAC,
that makes
right.
total sense.
Right,
But it doesn't affect your application, as long as we
Right.
know the process has started.
that's correct. As long as they know it and they know that there's a date for the referendum, then I think we would be okay. And you participated in webinars, that was your
Yes.
understanding, right?
Dr. Carver?
Yeah.
Could it be ready by February 7th?
Potentially, yes.
Because there's going to be a special election that day.
Oh, okay. Well, yes, we could. It would really
Well,
depend
something
on,
to look.
right, it
Okay.
would really depend on the direction that you want to take. So what we would have to do then is, I just want to add that last bullet. So ARPA funds can't be used to be the match in the grant, but it can be used to reduce the overall cost of the budget. Do you understand that distinction? Okay.
If you ask for $1 million, you have to have the $1 million excluding COVID money, and then you could add the COVID money on top of it to do it.
Right. So theoretically, if the project was $5 million and I'm not saying you're doing this, I'm just having a conversation. The town said, okay, we're gonna put $1 million of ARPA money down, then the application to the grant would be for the remaining balance between whatever the difference is. That makes sense.
No, I don't think it did. I'm sorry. But you said our COVID money. You just said if you asked for $1 million and we took our COVID money, the $1 million to match it, you can't do that. You can't use the
You
COVID.
You
money.
cannot use COVID to match.
Okay, I thought that's.
But
But the price of the job went down,
Offset,
That's
separate
correct.
project.
and then our
It's a
percentage.
separate project
No.
first.
No, they would allow it as part of the project. So, right, it just can't be the matching of the
right,
funds.
I
Dr.
understand.
Garber, my twin brother got hearing aids, so they're not fully adjusted yet.
Stop it.
So I think he's having a problem.
John, did I answer your question?
Would you like me to?
Well, after what he just said, absolutely. I totally
You got every word.
So we would say the project costs this amount. There's town grant money to this amount, which would reduce the total cost, but it can't be the matching amount. That's the difference, okay? The other thing that we have to do is we have to prepare and approve educational specifications. I just did that for Johnson and Rockwell. So Mr. Shorty and I are gonna work on that on Friday. It's just a document that we have to put together that accompanies our grant. And it just talks about what we need and what the effect it's going to have on the educational environment in the school. Terry Yansky, because Terry's helping to close out the Rockwell Johnson, and Jen and I participated with a call with the Office of School Construction last week. And she said, we talked to Michelle Dixon and she kind of walked us through what we need to have in the specs. It's not gonna be as complicated as it was for the school construction projects, but nonetheless, it's a document that we have to produce. We also have to do professional student enrollment projection, just like we did for the Rockwell and Johnson. So we've already actually started that process. We are not going to be using Malone and McBroom anymore, and that's not the company's name anymore. I forgot what it is.
SLR.
Thank you. I don't know why I can't remember that.
I don't know why I can't.
SLR. We're going to be using another organization called NESDEC to do it. And then the last thing we have to do is get professional cost estimates to support so there are some things that won't be included in those calculations that Kohler Ronan gave us, like commissioning, if there's any environmental work. Jen, is there anything else?
Those are the two big things.
Yeah, and they have agreed for the project management.
What was the last one? I'm sorry, Jen, what did you say?
I said those are the two biggest
Oh,
things,
okay.
so commissioning,
I
any
thought you named
environmental
something
work,
else.
and project management.
And they think that they just want to confirm, because a lot of the asbestos was taken out during the renovation, but they want to confirm that if there's any piping that goes through certain closets, that there's not like asbestos tiles still remaining. I think that was the biggest concern, right?
And also the glue behind some of the push
Chalkboard.
pin
Yes.
boards, chalkboards, yeah. might have.
Yeah. They likely probably would, because I know at Rockwell and Johnson, they were behind every board. So those are kinds of things that we have to get some professional estimates on. So we're in the process of doing that as we kind of walk through. So let's walk through some of the options, right? And I'm going to have Jen do that. But before she gets into this, you're going to see on every slide initial phase. And the reason that's separated out, that's the 1.1 million I talked to you about before. The reason that's separated out from whatever we apply, if we decide to apply for this grant application, because we are on a timetable, we have to spend our grant by, I think it's the spring of 2024. And we also know that because of it's in school, we have very short window to actually do the work. I mean, they can only do it during the summer. So that really leaves the summer of 2023 to really use that first pot of money. I think the town has much more flexibility in terms of when they can use their money. I don't
Last
know.
I saw it was like the end of 24, but there's talk extending it, but
Okay.
you know. it's
So
here.
what is your, doesn't it have an expiration date, your ESSER funds?
Mine does.
Yeah,
yes,
and what
I
is
think
that?
That's the best,
That's what she
2024.
said.
2024, okay, so
And
that's,
that's
yeah.
why we're gonna go forward with the initial phase regardless. Because we have to spend the money. And we already know that in that initial phase, that unit that I talked about, that ER unit 2, has to be done. And it has to be done soon. So that's definitely gonna be part of it. And I'm sure we can talk about your part of it.
That's okay, that's fine.
So we have basically 3 or 4 options for you to consider.
Dr.
this-
Carver, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
excuse
go for
me, Jen. You had said spring of 24 is when the ESSER funds have to be
That's
spent
right.
by. Is there a more definitive timeline, March, April?
No, I think it's the July 1st deadline.
I can double check it for you.
Yeah,
You'll send that out, we'll have to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this option is the option to fund the whole project, which after we pay for the first 1.1, that will leave a remaining $5.9 million that we could apply, use as our basis for applying for the grant. And of that, we've asked the town to commit approximately $3.2 million, and we would expect the grant funding to come in at about $2.7 million. So the advantage of doing this is that we would get everything done as soon as possible, and this is probably our least expensive way to do it, because this is our option for getting the most of a matching grant from the state. And we also know as time goes on, all of the equipment and everything, the prices go up as we push out the work in the purchasing of equipment.
so that's one option.
Yes.
Just to, and to take advantage of the grant. And I want to say something, and I've told several of you this separately. Just because we apply for the whole grant doesn't mean we're going to get the whole grant. So, so remember the security grants, right? We applied for, I don't know, close to 600,000, but we only got close to 300,000. So, you know, if you decided to go with option A and just kind of take care of all the issues and get the maximum reimbursement from the state. And I just want to say these are approximate numbers because it has to do with eligibility. You know, like, there are some things that are ineligible. But this would maximize the grant funding if that's what we wanted to do. If we want to maximize the, you know, the amount that we can actually get reimbursement for, then that would be the approximate cost of it.
So, Doctor, if we get, the ask is 2.7, we hope in a grant. If they just give us 2.1, are they expecting the whole thing to be done, or we're allowed to back down a little bit?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you would still have to fulfill the scope of the project that
That's what
you're
I mean.
doing, right? Now, if the costs come in separately from it, then that's a different thing. But I don't know if you can change the scope of the project once the project has been committed to.
So,
I'm pretty
but how
sure you
can they
can.
give us the percentage of 46% for them if they're really not giving us 46%? Then the percentage is going to change.
It's a
Right.
thing,
It's about eligible.
eligible.
It's eligible
You're saying-
cost.
That's
And
the most we can get,
That's
and
right.
then we can go down.
Right, but based on what happened in Rockwell and Johnson, HVAC is eligible expenses, right?
Yeah.
What things that are not eligible, like our legal cost, if you were to incur legal costs, even commissioner is eligible.
You're
There's,
doing the whole roof would not be, because
Right.
you don't have to redo a roof to.
do
replace
the
air
HVAC,
conditioning.
right.
Right, anything that's not associated with the
Correct.
project in chief.
But yeah, but based on that, you know, like I said, these are approximate numbers, because we would have to, you know, figure out some of the other pieces to it too.
Do we get an answer, sorry, do we get an answer from the state before we have to go to referendum, or referendum then answer from the state?
I actually don't know because this is such a weird circumstance.
Okay,
Typically in the state legislature, any grant that goes to the Office of Co-Construction has to go to General Assembly on December, right? It was voted on in December. This is a completely different process. So I'm not 100% sure.
But didn't we, for the school renovations, didn't we do something like that where it was, we had the referendum
We
that,
did,
and
after we
then-
applied.
right,
But we had a pretty good cost estimate by that point.
okay.
And I think we will, because we'll have better numbers as we get closer to the actual implementation of it. Because, you know, like commissioning fees and different pieces to this project, which is what we'll be using to actually apply to the grant.
and I looked into this, but Bethel was in a good position for this grant to come out. Because they
Very
were
good.
doing this, they did the study before any of this came out, because we knew we had HVAC needs at the high school. So
Right.
other towns might be struggling to
There's,
catch up.
I don't know how they're gonna meet the December 1st deadline because they were crawling around the high school for 3 months, Chris.
We started this back.
Just on
back in
the study.
Yeah.
But if we have to set up a referendum, we have to have a dollar amount. So,
100%.
you know, so I'm not sure, Brad, how that would work, you
So
know?
when we.
Well, I think to the next question, he was saying, hey, you know, if there's 5 million is the wish list, and we know we're not gonna get 5, but let's ask for 5 because we might get 2.5. You know, so then Nick's thinking, well, we spend 2.5 of our money and that's the number, right?
Right.
So,
But
but
I
it sounds
think-
like it's not gonna work that way.
Well, no, because let me back up. I think we'll have better cost estimates as we get closer to the grant application date.
Oh, okay, so,
Because yes, we are applying for a certain number and we have to put in all the pieces that we don't currently have yet. Like the commissioning, we're having TRC come out and do an evaluation to see if there's any asbestos needs. We have to work out any additional schematic drawings that Kohler Roman might need. So all of those pieces have to be worked out. But when we apply for the grant, we have to know that stuff.
and that's great, I mean,
On December
we need the
1st.
3.2, Bethel's in there for 3.2. But that could change when they come back with their ruling on what we're gonna get.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you're still gonna get 46.43 of all eligible expenses. The only thing that you have to worry about is what's not eligible. Just like with the school projects.
Kristen, do you remember when we did the school projects, did we put it out to referendum for the full amount?
No,
We
it said
did
for
them.
eligible expenses.
Alright, so when the schools went
And it
out,
was a not to exceed number.
Yeah,
the total was like 40 something, not
45 or
60.
something, yeah.
Okay, alright, just,
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. That's
No,
exactly how.
we we referendum the 65. We
That is
referendum
correct.
the
Alright,
total.
so-
That is
Wow.
correct, but I believe because people were worried about
In the motion, it
reimbursement,
said about the
yes.
reimbursement would be at 40.
Marty
whatever.
did something
Yeah.
with the motion
Yes,
to give us, because I think there was a concern if we didn't get a certain percentage back of
Yeah.
eligible expenses, we wouldn't move forward on the project.
so we
Oh, okay,
probably
so
would
there
do
could be
something
the-
similar.
There's,
in the-
the-
it was
there's
in
the
the
safety
motion.
breaker.
Yes.
Correct.
Right.
It was in the motion for the projects. I don't know the exact wording, but.
Yeah, but you could probably use similar
Yeah, I
wording.
thought we had to have it approved the full amount.
Right.
But there was, you were right, I think there was language in there protecting
Yes.
that.
Right,
If you didn't get the percentage.
okay, so then funding B,
Okay, so option B, so the first part of your, the initial phase is exactly the same as the other page.
again, we're doing that ahead of any grant application.
Because you gotta spend your money now.
Correct, yes.
Mhm.
Got it. So this grant phase here would take care of all the high and medium priority work, which is approximately $4.4 million. And so the town would be funding about 2.4 of that, and we expect to get $2 million from the grant. And then that would leave an additional $1.5 million of work
That eventually would
yes,
have to
would
get done in the future, right? So there's another option, right? If we want to reduce the scope of what we want to actually apply for, it gives us a cover and then allows some time to deal with the units that are in better condition to kind of move forward.
So then that becomes the town's part of 3.9.
Then the grant's gone, right?
Yes.
Instead of
Right,
3.2.
yes, yes,
You-
that's right.
You're just incurring more costs long-term.
Yep.
By not taking advantage of the grant. Option C.
And option C would be to only do the highest priority work now. So that would require the least amount of funding now, but would be deferring a significant portion of the work overall. So in this option, we would be applying for the grant for $1.2 million. The
Which
town-
should bring us to that 2.3, just for Cynthia and Nick, you know what I'm talking
Mhm,
about.
I know exactly.
So the town would fund about $640K, the grant would fund about $560, and then we would be deferring the remaining $4.7 million for a later time.
Right. So,
Is there a time frame for that later time here? So it's
Yeah.
final
well,
phase?
so what Kohler Ronan, can I just show him? So Kohler Ronan. And I sent you this, so you have a copy. Yeah. Oh, you have it just wrong. Just giving me technology
It's
support.
59 or a 78 pager.
Yeah. No, 26.
Yeah,
This one's only 26.
yeah.
We're getting there.
Here it is. So let me just make it a little smaller. And I realize this is really hard to read, and it's probably very hard to read for the people that are watching it on Zoom. But what this gives is a breakout of each of the units, what the age of the unit is, and what their actual service life should be, and the years that they are recommending. You know, if we're lucky, they'll last this amount of time. And so this grant kind of, this table kind of just gives a quick overview of their recommendations. I do want to point out two things with this table. AHU 9 and AHU 13 is what you gave us already, and they have been replaced. When Kohler Ronan did this, it hadn't been fixed yet. So those
So the
two
two zeros,
Yes,
Yes.
that's correct. The 2 zeros.
the
They-
nows.
That's right. So the auditorium and the cafeteria, yeah, they have already been replaced.
So is it, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, this chart represents updating the existing equipment. It does not include adding air conditioning to all the spaces that don't have air conditioning right now.
That's correct. That's correct. And there is, when I said the 2.3 million, this is what we were talking about at the time, which is at the end of the, document
Mhm.
with the two alternative. And this would bring, the 2.3 would bring air conditioning to all the spaces that we need air conditioned, right?
Not the whole building.
Oh,
75 edition.
that's right.
So the 75 edition are where all those English and math classrooms are. They don't swing all the way around to the front of the building. And that it goes down, 2.3 goes down to ROTC.
Right.
So it's just that side of that far side of the building, if you're looking at the building, the far right hand side.
So
It's
what,
not the front of the building, though. They're there's still rooms in the front of the building that would not be covered in this.
And even the world language, right?
Correct. That's the back of the building.
And that's the 2-3 number for that we just talked about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would not include those parts of the building.
But the 7 million
Would cover it.
is everything is done, and we don't have to worry about it for 20 years.
Right.
Well,
25
I
years.
hope it's 30 years.
Yes,
But,
7
going
years.
back to the biggest project that
Well-
Bethel had, the $32 million job, there was a brand new rooftop unit put on the gym and the weight room and all that without an AC coil.
What school are we talking about?
The high
High
school,
Yeah,
we have to replace, and that's $7 million.
the weight room, the yoga room, the wrestling room.
All the rooms where people get
That,
sweaty.
that rooftop,
All the
that's,
sweaty
and again,
rooms.
you tell me it's 20 years old, that renovation, I don't know. But that rooftop has to come off and put a new unit with AC to make AC. And that means upgrading the electricity also, because it's a whole different demand.
So I guess just as an overview though, the $7 million would
Covers.
mean that.
It covers everything.
Everything is done, and
Yep.
what is the life expectancy then?
I think between 25 and 30 years.
You could stretch it to 30. You know what I
So
mean?
the nice thing about what they're doing with the units in the classrooms, so those classrooms that don't have AC, they're pulling out the unit ventilators that just bring in outside air. They're putting in units same as what we had at Johnson. and
They're
Rock.
DOAS? I can't believe I know that.
Dedicated outside air. So it's
It's
dedicated
scary.
outside air with air conditioning in all those rooms, so it meets, every requirement. One of the things they did when they did the renovation at the high school, they decreased the size of the windows.
Which
probably
is actually bad for
by
ventilation.
75%.
Yeah.
We had huge windows that used to be able to open. Now we have these tiny windows that crank out. So bringing in outside air from those units is virtually impossible.
I was at this presentation and I'm kind of know what's going on, but the AC part of it is a bonus. There's no air pulling out of the bathrooms.
Right.
There's no, you have an air, we call it a fart vent in our industry, and there's nothing being pulled out of this
They're
area.
the same
So-
exact units that were put on the building in
Exactly.
1970 and 75.
There's so many more issues that are in that school. AC is just a added bonus. It really is. It's that bad a shape. There was huge mistakes made. There was stuff disconnected and left in ceilings. There's asbestos problems in there, and Colin Rowland touched on that. There is gonna be asbestos. There, let's not pretend it's not in there. We know what year that school was built.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of,
And there were ducts that led to nowhere.
yeah, they just
Well,
closed them up.
But
and
those are kind of a blessing though, too, because they're gonna be able to
Reuse some of those
Some
things.
of them, some of them. Yes, yes, I agree.
Right,
But-
and we asked the question because, just to put it out there, is it an issue? Because some of the roof needs to be replaced too, because of the age of the roof. Is that a problem? And Colin said it's not. That they can work around that and you could still long-term do a roof replacement.
There's a lot of banded curbs up there and vents, fans up there. That has to be addressed, but it can be addressed down the road.
Right.
When the roof is gonna be
That's
addressed.
correct.
So Nick, what I think I hear you saying is like, this is an imperative, this isn't like a nice to have, this is.
Listen, I'm cheap as hell.
Yeah.
This-
I
That's
mean,
why I just wanted to
I haven't
clarify
gone-
that.
Yeah, well, you're trying to put me up for the record, Mary. I'm cheap as hell.
Yeah, put that in the minutes, Mary.
But again, it really has a lot of issues in there.
Right.
And I'm embarrassed that 32 million was our biggest project and it wasn't done right. And I'm not gonna make this mistake. You know what I mean?
And it's a time to maximize a potential grant funding issue. Look at the end of the day, we may not get a grant, we may not get.
And if we
and
put
then
that
we're having a-
language in our
and then-
deal,
And then we're having a completely different conversation. We might get part of the grant.
You're gonna get
Yeah, but don't we have to go to referendum for whatever number we
That's
pick?
correct.
but
And then you commit
But
the tax.
Marty had the language to get us the circuit breaker. If we didn't get the full grant, Marty had that
not
magic
to
language.
exceed and then
But
said.
what if we didn't get
I
any
mean,
money?
I'm sure there's something.
That
That
was
circuit
in the
breaker is built in
language.
this, in the language.
And what we probably need to find out for you too is what the timeline is from the application to your point, Rich, to actually having a referendum. So that's one question we have to ask. And then second question is, it's my age, it's so bad.
It's-
Whether or not, if we got a partial grant, like how would that work? So we have to find that out.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, this is just conceptual. We just want to get a sense from you, like, you see us applying for the whole grant, or, I mean, like, you don't have to, the work's the work regardless. I'm assuming you all want us to apply for a grant.
Yes,
I think.
I think
so.
so. Are we
Well,
moving into the discussion phase? Are we,
Yeah.
okay,
Yes,
so,
I'm-
okay, hold on.
Wait, do we have any more?
That's it.
That's it, that's it
Okay.
for slides.
I just want to say, because we're all doing pretty well, but the last video, everybody was, talking and talking, so I didn't want to say like, raise your hand, but let's just be conscious of one speaking at a time. So, questions? Yes.
The question I'd asked to Jen, which is I think still on the table, right, is, or hasn't been answered yet, is the under option C. Do you know what the time is? And where I'm heading here,
It matches the capital plan on this. Oh, it's not numbered, but this capital plan here, so it has the additional funding based with an 8.5% uplift for each year, so it's initial.
and where's that? Jen?
So over
It's
3
on,
years.
It's in this.
It's the one.
This one?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay. So
So it
this,
matches the
Yeah.
numbers.
I
It
guess,
does.
okay, so this will allow us,
This, yeah.
right, Brad, to layer in total cost.
Yes.
Right? We need, I'm assuming, go issue bonds. I don't think we have enough capital non-recurring.
We don't have enough capital non-recurring. We,
Could it come out of the general fund? I'm just
it
curious.
could, we just updated our.
We,
fund
Yeah.
we
balance,
just changed the
which I don't
balance.
know if
a
you
little
have the
later.
room to do
Hold on.
3.2,
Oh,
but it
okay.
depends on some of the timing of it.
Yeah, what if it was
So-
over 3 years or 2 years?
Well,
Yeah.
my point is, these are questions we should know
Yeah.
by the time we ask them to do something or not do something.
100%.
Right?
Yep.
Because if
And
we're
if there was
looking,
additional ARPA money that you wanted to apply to the project, that's another question.
and there we may need to, and I'm not saying speculate on interest rates, right? No, none of us are gonna make our living speculate, or we're not gonna do well as far as our living speculating on interest rates, but we know now interest rates are pretty high,
Right.
right? They're 4+% on a 10-year bond, which is kind of where we would borrow.
Yep.
And the expectation is that interest rates are going to decrease. Right? That's what the market is anticipating. So do we layer that into our timing assessment? I just think all these questions should be asked and answered so that we make an informed decision as to how to go forward.
Right.
Because it's, when we talk about total costs, we'll see, right? But inflation is supposed to come down.
Right.
Interest rates are supposed to come down. So what we need to not use just the blanket wording of this is the cheapest. I think we want to do a little deeper assessment. of all those
100%.
costs.
And I guess what maybe we should do too is take a deeper dive into some of the other costs that might be, what we think might be ineligible. right?
Yes, that would be
And then
helpful.
also, we just got a quote on commissioning, right? And how much that might cost, and that's not included in some of these numbers. So we have to firm up some of that pieces too. So in the meantime, but would you like us to do it for each of the 3 options?
Well, can I get back to one? The 1,000,001 is already baked in the cake.
Right.
But is that taken off the 6.99 number?
That's correct.
So it's still 7 million after the million?
No,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
No, no, no,
Pre,
no.
pre the 1.1, the
Yeah.
project $7
Yeah.
million.
So, right,
So it drops to
So we're back
5.9.
down.
That's right.
right. So we're
That's right.
6
So you
million.
go back to A,
Yes. That's
you'll see
correct.
that approximately 5.9 is the grant phase.
So Brad, your committee with the smoke-filled room, the ARPA committee,
Oh, yeah,
you
with the
already,
cigars.
with cigars, I know there's no smoking allowed, but we're
Yeah,
talking.
they do it.
You
Right.
guys
Brandy.
pledged, and I know the Board of Selectmen hasn't acted on it. So if we put more COVID money down, that would, we can apply for less money in the grant. And
That's
better
what
chance
I've
of
been
getting
talking
it.
about. That's
So
what I've been
acting
talking
first
about.
selectman, would you support of spending that money on something as important as this is air quality? I mean, that's what this ARPA money was all supposed to be about.
We're already giving 400.
No,
Yeah,
you committed to 400.
You have way more
I
than that.
challenge you to put 1 million in.
I second that challenge.
All I'd like to know is kind of have a better sense for how the
Yeah.
pieces are coming
Okay.
together.
Yeah.
Bob,
so
did you transfer?
Okay.
Yes, I think I got a commitment from Dr. Carver and Jen to kind of start piecing out what the phases look like.
That's correct.
What the amounts look like, and then it's gonna be Brad doing his magic as to how you fund the annual pieces. And
And the other piece, because the other piece we have to look at is because right now, Kohler Ronan is, I believe, doing all the design work up to the 2.3.
Yes.
So we would have to expand that contract with them, and how much would that cost, so.
Yeah.
So that's all.
You have some work to do.
We do.
You're trying to get a
I'm raising
consensus
my
from
own
us.
hand
Yes.
for a moment, and then, I'm just gonna raise my own hand. So it seems to me that this is like in two parts in a way, like we can even, because they did this at planning and zoning, they had a consensus vote, like we might even be able to have a consensus vote about whether we want door number 1, number 2, or number 3. And not be specific, like what sounds the best to us, not committing to anything, but it's a consensus vote.
So
It's
you
not a
can know
vote
where to
vote.
do your work.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, I
Um,
think the consensus
I-
vote is just that we want to apply for a grant or not the dollar amount.
No, we still have to give the dollar.
Sort of to the degree.
Yeah,
There's still a lot to be considered with what the
100%.
ineligible expenses are.
that's true,
My
but
biggest concern right now is I want to know that.
if
And
it's,
how long do you have to complete the whole project? Like, do we have to fund the whole project all at once?
Yes, you would have to
So we
commit.
have to commit, so the full,
To get the.
right,
the
so we
reimbursement.
have to be able to provide.
The town would have to be in for their portion, yes.
But we couldn't spread, what I'm saying is we couldn't spread that out. Like, if you did phase, let's say the project was gonna take 2 summers, we couldn't
You could spread
commit.
out, I think just like the school projects, I think you could spread out when you're
You can
actually
make
paying
payments.
it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're saying to the state of Connecticut, we are agreeing to match.
Right.
2.7 million.
But we don't
or
have to
whatever
write
it
a
is.
check tomorrow for 2.7
No.
million. We pay for it as the project comes along.
No.
So as to answer, how long do we have to, that's kind of what I'm thinking. And there's my other question was you had some green condition.
Right.
Would those, is that part of low priority or we're not touching that? Because that was about a
If we
million.
did option A, I just got out of
The
this.
low priority is in.
So even those ones
That's
with the
right.
units that have like expected 10 to 15 years left,
Right.
that's included. Is that included to replace them, or you think that's more of like servicing them to get?
No, it would be complete replacement.
That's new.
Be
Right.
complete replacement, right? Is that, okay, and so is option B not include those low? Is that the only thing that option B doesn't really include?
Right, correct.
Is those units that already have like
Yeah.
10 to 15 years?
Yeah, and
left on them?
Their names are listed on this page here.
Right,
So the high priority, medium priority, and the lower priority.
And not to interrupt, but I would believe that the gym rooftop is in the green because there's nothing wrong with it.
That's right, it just isn't that.
You know what I mean? So.
yeah, these are just the
Well, there was
units, so
only-
see
it
this was
replaced 2
the,
years into its
This
first
is-
use. because it blew
just
up.
one at a time, right?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Didn't insurance cover the replacement? Yeah, and that, the town didn't incur the cost because it was still under warranty. So for the youth, it did blow up. I you probably
Tore
remember.
apart the dude.
But it was, insurance paid for the cost of the replacement of it. But it didn't have AC before, so they wouldn't replace it with it.
Dr. Kerr, in option A, are you ready to go to bid for that unit now?
Yes. No,
Year
well,
two is great.
We're working with Ronan to finalize the bid specs, and we're hoping to go to bid early November,
yes.
but it's not. I mean,
So
Not publishable right now.
if you were to do the option A, just say option A, you can proceed with getting the air for the science rooms
That's correct.
ASAP.
We're doing that anyways
And-
with our grant money.
Right,
Mhm.
But we would need the selectmen to commit that $400,000 before we got to bid.
But going back to that, Rich, would you support some more of that COVID money? Because that's really what the intent was.
it's possible. I can't guarantee it. I'm only one person.
But you would support it yourself?
I would support looking at it.
Oh, that's something.
Okay, that's, I guess that's a win.
Wait, option A.
Go ahead.
Yes, so in any of these, we're getting started because of, and also because of the supply chain delays. They said it takes how long to get one of these?
I don't know if you heard about COVID, it's kind of a big deal.
Yes.
6 months,
Yes, a long time.
Yeah,
6
so-
months probably.
Oh, easily 6 months.
ERU two though is a more available unit because it's basically plug and play unit.
It's built,
not one of
right.
those situations
Just
where
drop on a curve
They
and
have
go.
to redesign the whole,
Right.
whole thing.
So we are doing the 1.1 as long as the selectmen approve the 400,000.
Put it on the agenda next week.
Perfect, because we do need to go out to bid soon to start to get the supplies so that we can do the work this summer.
When do you think you would have more of an idea of numbers? Like, would
Well,
you,
we're gonna have
would,
to come in November because you have. to
Right,
decide.
but I mean, would it be even if something that we would have a special meeting for, like, because our meeting is the second Tuesday in the month. So I would be willing to schedule a special meeting at the end of October if you want to, or the first week
End
of
of October.
November.
No, I
I'm
don't have
just
time.
saying, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I thought you meant like closer to Thanksgiving. That would be more helpful.
Yeah.
A special meeting can be set up anytime.
Yeah, no, yeah, that could be, it could be then.
I'll let you know, where we are. at
We're
that
trying to
point.
get you closer away from that December 1st deadline.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Well,
But we
there's,
still have a lot of legwork to do on our
Yes.
side.
But you would prefer to be closer to December 1st.
I would.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna probably take us a longer, we're trying to get prices on a lot of different things right now.
So what do you need from us tonight?
Well, I think I got it, which is
Consensus.
you want us to work up what it would be for all three options.
Yeah.
Which is not
Worst case
actually that
scenario.
hard, Yeah.
John had a question.
because some of it's not gonna
Yeah.
change.
John?
So my question, I think it's what Bob and Bobby Joe kind of was around it. So it's a $7 million project. 4.4 is red or yellow in your color chart.
Right.
So to Bob's point, what is, what can be pushed out there even more if we're trying to figure out how to,
That's option B.
right. Option B would be almost, you'd spend in 4.4 now. If you got a grant for 2 million and the town committed 2 million, right? Or I'm sorry, yeah,
Right.
then you're really looking at in 10 years, you could deal with it in accelerated price, but
Right.
dealing with the other 2 million.
That's correct. That's correct.
So
And again,
I think the consensus should be that we need to know what all.
and I'm sorry just to pick at the numbers, but I'm
Your numbers
struggling to
guy.
keep
You're the numbers
keep
guy.
over there. Dr. Cartwright, if I understood this, and I may not, option B, we're actually spending 5.5.
Well, yeah, because.
But take that first
1.1's
1
But
already
the
million.
one
baked
point
in.
one's coming off.
Yeah.
the top.
That's fair.
Yeah, understood. We spend 5.5, 1.1 comes off, we see 4.4. That leaves only,
Oh, yeah, right.
only the 24 to 25. Well, At least the 24 to 25 tranche undone, or done for a later period.
Correct.
I like window 2.
Door number 2.
As long as sour cream comes on. it's fine.
Monty's cookie jar.
Like I said, we wanted to present all the options so that you could make an informed decision. And if you want real detail about the cost estimates in the actual, the long report, at the very end of that very long report, there's a lot more financial breakout in terms of what they're estimating the
Estimating
costs
for.
of labor, installation, design, all of those pieces.
And it's not just we want to get the most value for money. So that's part of the timing issue and the amount over time. I'm thinking about my teeth because it's like I'm having a lot of dental work. Do I want to just get rid of those silver fillings? Do I need a bridge or do I need an implant? So I'm thinking I might go with the implant because that would last longer and I wouldn't die with no teeth. So I'm kind of thinking of that this way, I think we could go for the implant if the numbers were right. You know what I'm saying? Like over time, and then it lasts longer.
Can I put you down on the record for not being
Can
cheap
I ask
tonight?
one more
Yeah,
question?
no,
just
we're
for
both not cheap.
timing
I'm
of
not
it?
cheap on this.
So say Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, everybody says option A, the town votes for it. It's still probably gonna be done over 2 summers.
Oh,
correct?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
This is
So
not a
the-
magic wand.
Bob Manfreda's point, that factors in
There's a lot
when
of
we would
design
start paying for
Right.
some of it.
So Bob, in the back here is like an extensive breakdown of lots of cost of all these units and labor and different pieces to it. So I just want I'm just pointing it out to you. If you really want to get into the weeds, it's in the back of this report.
He's not doing anything during the day.
He's just growing a
Not even
beard all
shaving.
day. That's all he does. is just
Speaking
grows
from a
his beard.
historical standpoint, in 2002, and Nick and John could probably tell you this because they've been here since the beginning, you've been around. 2002, to renovate as new, Bethel High School, renovate as new, air conditioning throughout the building, with a $25 million project. There was arguments about it. Kicked the can down the road. We were on probation from NIAS. 7 years later, it was a $32 million project. Not even half the things were done, and we were left with 36 classrooms with no AC, a gym with no AC, and Cynthia has been there through all the work that did not get done, that the town has paid for anyway to fix.
I know, we've
some
had
of the
this
work.
lecture before, Chris.
So-
Thank you.
It is.
But in the back like there's estimates from Colorado too, so if you really want to get into the weeds of some of it, it's all there. That's the long document.
Yeah,
And I have one last question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So the 4.4 plus the 1.1, does it make the school comfortable for the next 5 to 10 years? Because obviously at that
Probably the
price,
biggest issue that wouldn't be
the
covered
gym.
there is, well, updating the media center, which is a large space. But also it's the locker rooms. So right now, the boys and girls locker rooms
The
are
weight
not.
rooms.
The
don't have
media
the-
center is air conditioned.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, that one is something that would have to be replaced in the future. But the locker rooms don't have any kind of AC and they don't have the best ventilation and they're quite stinky.
It just seems
Or
like
the
all the
gym.
rooms where you're sweating
So those
don't
are
have
too low.
AC.
Those are.
They're in
low.
the prairie because they're small.
And,
Um,
and they haven't,
Bless you.
they're not nearing their end of their lifespan.
Well, yeah,
But there's no
But
AC.
there's no AC in those locker rooms, right?
So they smell.
So
okay, does that still mean that the school is comfortable?
most of the school would be comfortable. That's correct. The locker rooms could continue to be uncomfortable.
Why didn't they, I mean, for $7 million, why didn't they factor that in? Like, how much could it cost?
No,
No,
that's
it's
in
They
that.
just
That's
put
in
a
the
That's in
color
there.
code.
She's
Yeah.
just saying if we go with option B, he was asking
Some of
what,
the-
what
Oh,
wouldn't
okay.
be covered.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that wouldn't be covered.
Okay, sorry.
If it was an ideal unit half the
What,
projects that
just-
would be done.
One
Right.
at a time,
Yeah.
one at a time.
Yeah.
Also, the TV studio, the equipment for this TV studio has failed, so there's no AC in there either, but that, I personally would prioritize the locker rooms above the TV studio. They get.
But somebody did a study and did,
Well, they did it based on the, they did it based on the,
The life of the equipment.
And the wrestling room is in there, in the green, so that would get
Yeah,
cut too.
sure.
That one we do have in the medium priority, because that room is definitely something that needs ventilation.
And that is not by the rooftop on the gym? That's a different unit?
Correct, it's AHU6, which has the capability of adding air to it, but it's at such an end of its cycle.
Yep.
That.
There's no sense of putting a coil in it, right?
Correct.
Right.
thank you.
and I mean, honestly, I know I keep coming here and telling you about more problems, but honestly, this would fix every building in our district.
Again, we don't need to say, John and I have lived in this town for a long time, and I am so tired of not doing something right that I would support fixing this for once and be done with it.
And so would I, so this should really alert the media, because we're both.
And Cynthia, last
slipping.
month, and I, we have not agreed on anything.
No, we haven't. No.
But I would like to add, Richie, this is to you, that the town got a gift of $5 million of COVID money, and the money really, I am so sick of Bethel not spending the money on what we need
Yep.
and not necessarily what we want. So if the money's in the checkbook, we should fix what we need. And I'm just.
Fix what we own already.
And I'm gonna say that
Right.
too. I've been talking about the $1 million for a splash park and whatever. There are other things that we need, and this is one of them. And
This would cut cost. If we fixed it
Yep.
right, it would cut maintenance costs out of the school or the Board of Ed's project. And I would expect to see a deduction on that if we did this.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And-
it would happen about.
We'd stop changing.
I mean, I can't tell you how to.
But and then you would.
We don't modify it.
No.
Nor do I want to get in a fight about.
No, but-
it.
no, no.
Yeah, You're just looking for consensus.
I just want to know what you want me to fight for.
I think you have enough consensus. I think you know where we're going. I think so.
I get the
Hold
sense that there's consensus across the 7 of us. What I am not sure we fully all understand,
what option?
we have 51 days. Just kind of looking at the calendar. I think
Right.
51 days brings us to December 1st. Thanksgiving is in there. So realistically, it's, I don't know, 5 weeks, 6
Right.
weeks. Do we have milestones along the way, or can we create
Yes.
milestones along the way to get us to, when do you need
Well,
input from
when do
this?
you meet in November?
The second,
the
the
12th
second
to 13th.
Tuesday,
Yeah.
yeah.
The second Tuesday of the month.
But if you
That's
need
our
to-
Can we
regular
do
meeting.
this? I would like,
11:08.
we would like to check in with Kohler Ronan tomorrow.
Yes.
And get better estimates, really explore the ineligible costs. You know, I just have to refresh myself with what's ineligible. And then put together, because the grant application itself, you have to give a budget. And it has to have all that, and it has to list out what you're projecting as ineligible costs. So we need a good couple weeks to do that. In the meantime, we're also gonna get the enrollment report. and work on the ed specs. So can I get back to you? I think Jen and I need to touch base with Fuller Brown and
I think that we.
November 15th would be the date that you're meeting.
No,
No?
11/8.
Is that wrong?
Yeah, no.
11/8.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So, but I think Cynthia,
That's
you'd be in
election.
favor of having a special meeting whenever
I
you
would
need it.
have, hold on, I would be very willing to schedule a special meeting to even get to that benchmark, you know what I'm saying, Mr. Manfreda?
Yeah.
Like just even in 2 weeks, just know where you are so that we can
Okay.
start to,
Meet as a group.
start
So what day are
to
you
take
looking at?
shape, you know?
No, it's really what day you're looking at. If
Yeah.
in a week and a half you had some good information, then I think we should agenda and schedule
Yeah,
a
like if
meeting.
we had a special meeting on the 25th, you
Well,
could
I don't
see,
know how much more we're gonna have. then.
Really?
Can we just talk? to
You let us
Fuller
know when you're ready.
no, you call them right now,
And let you
call
know
them right now.
tomorrow.
You let us know what you need.
Yes.
Or the 24th. Oh,
They wanna go out.
Can
We
Well,
need more.
I ask
or,
one
or
question?
Halloween.
So how much more work is looking at all three options? Because I know one of the things you and I talked about is coming to the Board of Finance to try to get some guidance because of the tight time frame.
Right.
Do you want to meet sooner in a couple weeks to get more guidance if they want to
Well, and we
eliminate an
have to go to
option?
the selectmen too.
Yeah.
So we have to go to them.
We could have a joint
I
special
didn't know
meeting.
more than one.
We have a meeting next week too.
Okay.
Yes.
One or two.
But they won't have the information ready for you, Rich.
No,
No.
But Nick, to
Brian
Brad's
can
point-
hear what we just talked about today too.
Right. So let me do this. How about I touch base with you tomorrow?
Yes, that's
We'll,
good.
we'll touch base with Fuller Rowan.
That'd be great.
And I know we'll get Bob and the committee the date of the spending down of our ESSER grants too. But I think it's, I don't know if it's June or. Yeah, or September 30th. To Brad's point, they are talking about extending a little bit, which would be great. if they do. But it's not.
It's good and bad.
Yeah.
Obviously, it gives you more time. If they extend
It gives
it,
everybody
if
more
they
time.
extend it, it gives everybody more
Well,
time.
Right.
Bigger
John-
audience.
John's
That's
gonna-
still one question I just wanted to ask, because I didn't in the beginning, because I'm for this, but you said that when this set out this conversation, we're like, we're in a really better position than we've ever been.
Yeah.
Is it because we're in a better position or because everybody else is in a bad position?
They've done all
more
the
money.
work. They've done all the work already.
We already did.
Right.
They're all prepared for school.
We're
But
like
it is.
shovel ready.
Yeah, if they extend it, you think that.
The dollar amount helped us also, and from
Yeah,
90 to
150
150 million.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, by doubling the amount. I mean, like, I know other big cities like Bridgeport, they
Right.
have what, 40 schools? And they're just really, really set shape. So they're gonna prioritize, and there is a prioritization list on the website, but we actually meet most of the criteria. And the fact, I mean, just looking at the Johnson and Rockwell projects, look at this, $7 million to replace. I mean, it's, and there's 169 towns in the state of Connecticut. So there's a lot of schools to fix.
But to Brad's point, some of them will be ready
They
by-
won't.
unless they push it out.
They're not gonna push out the date.
Oh,
Yeah.
December 1st is the date.
Okay, are there any more questions?
So I will put touch base with you.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
so we're meeting Friday, right?
Yeah,
Tomorrow night.
tomorrow.
Hurry up.
Good night, ladies.
So on that, there was no action taken on that motion, so we're
Just
just
dies.
carrying that over.
It's-
Thank you.
It was a motion to discuss.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, now we're gonna move on to Brad's favorite subject.
This is the one that's
No,
gonna take
no,
time.
the second favorite subject.
Can I make a motion? We have a potty break first, because this is gonna be.
Well, no, come on,
Go
man.
ahead. I'm
I want to go down the hall. I gotta go down the hall and see what's going on.
Want to kick off? You want me to kick off? Why don't I kick off?
Yeah, kick it off.
All right. So the chart that you have in front of me, and you, everybody, is the organizational chart. This is not the one that was in the financial report last year. It's not the one that was in 2 years ago. It's a new one. It's pretty much the 2 years ago one, but it adds the controller going to both the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen with a first draft of a note in there.
Hey, we're good.
I'm just,
Yeah.
C1 was the one that we got put in the report.
That's the
Mary did a very nice job in labeling it, right? Or
Yeah,
we say
C1
that?
is not the one we're
Without
looking
the
at.
footnote.
No, yeah, but that's the one we're not. It's the smaller print.
This is the one
It's
that
the
we did
smaller
last year
boxes.
in the annual.
C1's the one that was in last year's annual report.
And then I changed the word.
You got it.
So, and like I said, it's got, the verbiage on the bottom is the first draft. I wanted to get the Board of Finance's thoughts on it tonight. I'm gonna bring it to the Board of Selectmen at their next meeting on Tuesday and get their thoughts, because hopefully we can just get a nice consensus on this between the two boards, move forward, and then everybody's happy or equally unhappily.
But let's just make a motion to consider it and whatever, because, you know, I have an idea for an amendment of just the type. I'm fine with the, well, anyway, do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept this organizational chart with changes from tonight.
Second?
A second?
Second.
Now we can discuss.
We all know what this is about, so I'm just saying that, you know, Bob and I had a little conversation before the meeting. So I know that I'm okay with the way it's laid out, but we just wanted to make a little amendment at the bottom, just an additional phrase. So after first selectman, comma, with policy direction by the Board of Finance.
And then I think that meets the charter better.
Charter and job description.
Yes, the job description and the charter. So let's discuss it if you want to discuss it, or we can vote if you want to.
Well, then we should probably just take that as a friendly amendment, because I think you're
Hmm?
pretty good with that.
Are you okay? I mean, just saying.
Anybody?
Yeah, and just for my own comments, I'm okay with that. I do still want to present it to the Board of Selectmen because I don't want this to be a thing anymore.
You do you, Brad.
Okay.
So that brings the question to, do we include in our motion that we want to include this in our report? Because at the end of the day, the report is our report.
It's true.
So we do have the purview, if we want to make the motion, the selectmen want to say otherwise, then they can certainly voice their opinion. Do we want to go that far, or do we want to just accept this now and then just,
Are you saying replace last year's report?
no,
Moving forward,
we can,
moving forward.
we can say moving
Oh,
forward,
sure.
it will be in our report.
Well, Brad, that's part of
No,
your
it has
checklist.
It's
Yeah.
Hold
Yeah.
on, one at a time. It's just, it really gets.
So just as like the ones to the back. Yeah.
No, I know, but if Dan's asking, are we gonna put it in the upcoming financial
Yes.
report? It's always been in the
It has to
report,
be
there's
part.
no reason not.
Yeah.
for
Right.
not to.
It
But
doesn't,
are we making a motion of saying you're accepting this and including it?
I don't think we have.
We can
the-
just
Because he wants
accept
to-
it.
Question is,
I'm sorry.
I agree with you.
it may be just nuance, maybe we don't want to know there, I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I don't quite understand the role of the Board of Selectmen or the first selectman in this.
honestly, I wanted to present it to them to get feedback, just to make sure that this is just, if everybody's on board with it, I
Okay,
think then it's a done issue, is my feeling on it.
okay, so
So,
why,
because it was a draft, it was
then
just, that
you
was my
could do
thought.
that, you could do that before we do this, right?
I could, yeah. I'm okay with that change.
Right,
So we can bring it Tuesday to the Board of Selectmen, get their feedback, and then bring it back at the November meeting.
Well, I mean, Rich is here. Rich, the
Yeah,
language
I
is that
thought-
we're just trying to follow charter and we're part of the
Right.
charter there. Do
So
you-
that's
do you
not-
I
support
understand
that?
you're part of the charter, but there was also a ruling by the town attorney that it said that the Board of Selectmen, or the first selectman had the power of it. So as I had discussion with Brad today, and we're gonna bring it to the Board of Selectmen next Tuesday and discuss it.
okay, so we don't do anything.
So
Because-
so if nothing else, I'm taking your feedback that you provided tonight.
Okay,
And
that's,
Brad, will your
and that's fine.
recommendation to the Board of Selectmen be to accept this chart with the footnote as we just amended? Is that gonna be your recommendation?
Yes. And then the
Okay.
Board of Selectmen can make whatever recommendation they want. And if it really comes down to it, which I hope it doesn't, then we'll eventually need a ruling who gets final say. But I'm kind of hoping
We're pretty close.
that the Board of Selectmen say that's okay, the Board of Finance says that's okay. And we put it in the updated org chart in the annual report, which is coming out in December, and we're done with it.
Okay, let's just put this to a vote, that we approve this with this amendment That's all.
Sorry, can you restate the
The new language on the.
Yeah, I was gonna do it with the amendment. So the motion to approve it with this amendment. So it's after the line at the bottom, Mary, comma.
Yep.
With policy direction by the Board of Finance.
From or by? I know it's a nuance, but first time you
With
said
policy
from.
direction by the Board of
Okay.
Finance.
Per charter.
So before you vote,
Yes,
Nick, that was
per
your
the job.
motion, so you have to make
Hold
a
on,
motion and
hold on.
Danny has to accept the second.
But since
Hold on, it says From, not by.
So with policy direction from the Board of Finance.
And my only ask is that if the town attorney is going to it again, I believe this job description, which has been in effect since 2007,
Yeah.
has been adopted by the entire Bethel town, should be considered in the analysis. It was not considered in the first analysis.
That is true.
very good point.
Okay. So let's just vote with that amendment. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed. Okay, now we go to Brad's favorite, so.
Controller report. If you look in the top right there, collection rate, current year 39.55, prior year 38.94. If we're within 1 or 2 percentage point, we're happy either way. Obviously, it's up, but it always depends on timing. The revenue looks good. The thing that will stick out is in intergovernmental revenues, miscellaneous state revenues, was budgeted 282,660. We've received this year 339,364. That was the 336. That was the state of Connecticut sent us the car tax money. If you remember during the budget season, they promised to make us whole for the difference in the car tax. So we received that money. So that's good. It was kind of factored into the mill rate to a certain degree because the town of Bethel only ever has capped our car tax at 32. So we did not factor the whole 336 because that's the difference between what we were. I would have to look back at it, but there, because we've capped it at 32, if they really looked at that to make us whole, it would only be what they capped it at versus the 32. But they gave us the whole amount, so that's great.
I'm sorry, but I thought the state capped it at 32.
The state was gonna cap it years ago at 32. That's why we stopped at 32. And then this year, and I don't have it in front of me, and I apologize for that. They picked a different amount that was slightly more than 32. So we continue to cap it at 32, which is below. So in theory, we're not really out any motor vehicle revenue. So the 336 represents the difference between our current mill rate and what the state capped motor vehicle at. So that's really why we didn't budget much of it, because if the state looked at what we were actually out, really wasn't anything. Because we kept our motor vehicle at 32. We did have the ability to go back up to what our real estate was. We just haven't. So. Any other questions on revenue? Expenses. Everything's where I expect it to be. Utilities is still an issue. Obviously, everybody sees the price of the pump. It had gone, I saw it down as low as 290, and now we're creeping back up again. We're still not locked into utilities because when we asked them last week, they're still looking to lock in at 4 something. So
And that's for fuel oil or diesel fuel?
everything's up still. Some that's the timing of it. It's, we asked like 2 weeks ago for the pricing. It takes them a while to compile it. Then OPEC did what they did. And so when they gave us their price to lock in, it changed. That's why it's up again. That's why we're not locked in. I wish we were, but you know, trying to balance out. You don't want to lock in at 4 and then we go back down to 50. So So we're in a waiting game with that unfortunately still, and my hope is after the November election, we might see a drop again in prices. Which would be good because we start running the trucks more for plowing and everything, so.
Is there anything that sticks out from any of these counts to you?
Not at this point, we're still really early in the year,
Yeah.
3 months into the year. Park and Rec this time of year always looks high percentage wise, it's because of summer camp.
Yeah.
They have more of their expenses over the summer than elsewhere. Insurances usually look off, but we pay our workers' comp and lab quarterly. So we've made 2 payments because they want it. It's due October 1, but you got to pay in September to not be late. So we've made 2 quarters, even though it's only been 1 quarter of the year. So that's why, like, if you look at town insurance, budget's 1.4, we've expended 700,000. And probate is.
Can we go back to the utilities? The natural gas, a lot of these schools and stuff are on natural gas now.
Yeah.
So we don't pre-buy that. We just pay market prices that comes through the pipe.
We used to, we've always locked in natural gas. And our contract came up in December, January. It was high. In hindsight, 2020, we should have locked in at what was high come December,
It would
January.
have been good now. Yeah.
Yeah, so, so that's on market rate too.
But is that through, and I know it's Eversource is the gas company now, is that you're pre-buying through Eversource or Eversource is the delivery just like CLP or Eversource, sorry?
Yeah,
You know,
it's
how
like,
does that work?
it's the same that you can buy it through.
From a
like you lock
private
it away.
guy,
Like
everybody,
our,
delivery fee?
yeah, luckily our electric is locked in. We locked in our electric 2 years ago for a 5-year span. So even though you're residential, you see your bill goes up every month and it's like 15 cents per kilowatt hour right now. Or I think Eversource right now, like 12 something. Constellation, we locked in a lot lower. Luckily, our electric is still locked up for another 3 years at our lower rate. So otherwise utility would be up more, you know, but that doesn't help us versus budget. Because we
Save on one, pay
budgeted,
more.
we knew we locked in electric. So that if we didn't lock up electric would be up too. So.
You know where we are compared to last year at this time with utilities?
I don't.
That's true.
Yeah. Thirty more seconds. That should help. Utilities last year at this point was 436. And we're at 562. You know, keep in mind, that spread could be based on timing.
Mhm.
You know, we could have
Purchase or
taken
something, yeah.
6,000 gallons of diesel September 30th and paid that bill September 30th, where last year we paid it October 1. So there, you know,
We also haven't tried to do that yet.
great. Well, I think it goes on Sundays, but it was 36 this morning, but yeah.
Okay.
So it's not cranky yet.
So we should make a motion to accept this.
I would make a motion to accept Brad's comptroller report.
Second, is anyone seconding that? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? Adjourn?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
it's just, we're trying to work in a referendum for the water treatment plant that PUC is planning. And we're trying to get it in before the possible primaries for the special election. So we're looking for a date around November 29th or 30th for this special election for the referendum. So I might have to request a special Board of Finance meeting to work in the dates so we're finalizing the dates for everything. So I might
What was the
ask for-
date again that you wanted to?
The referendum would be November 29th or 30th.
And which is that equipment purchasing or
No, it's
upgrades?
a whole new plant
A whole new plant.
for the Bergstrom property where we drilled a new well that's 800 gallons a minute out
I'm
of
sorry,
that
what
well.
property, I'm sorry?
behind the ball field, the old police station.
Okay,
So Rich, you're just telling us this to be on a
Yeah, you're
notice
just-
that we made.
Right, you
Just
know, and
information.
if we can make it work in your regular meeting, the 8th, we'll talk to you on the 8th about it, but if
Yeah, we
not,
can
it
put it
might
on
be
the
discussion.
agenda for the 8th.
and this would be, we have to guarantee the money, but the users are really paying.
Correct,
Yes.
correct.
Okay, we can discuss that at the meeting when we put it on the agenda. So we have made the motion and second to adjourn. So shall we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. I don't think anyone's nay.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.